Thank you, and good evening, everybody. Andrea showed you that picture of me taking my first skydive, and I think she picked that picture for my intro because she thought it was exciting. I think that how it applies here is that there are some things in our lives that we are very worried about doing or nervous about. Some things take a leap of faith. And for many people that I've met in the last few years since working with YoungStar, I think formal rating is one of those things that requires a lot of trust in other people, and some kind of fear is involved, and the purpose of tonight's webinar is to actually help you to feel better prepared about the formal rating process. And so it's going to be my role tonight to go through everything that I believe you need to know to be fully prepared for a formal rating, and it's your role to just listen, pay attention, and ask questions. Please ask questions. Andrea showed you that little chat box where you can send them in, and we really hope that if you have any, that you would let us know what those are, because while I'm on tonight, I would like to address as many of those as possible. So to begin with, some of you will know all of this, and so forgive me if it seems a little bit boring, some parts of this, but it's all important. I want to introduce the three different types of ratings that there are in YoungStar. The first is an automated rating, and automated ratings do not require you to participate in any kind of interaction with a person. You don't have to sign up and have technical assistance with a technical consultant. You don't have to have anybody come out and review paperwork or do observations in your classrooms or any of that. Automated ratings are completed it's just a review of paperwork, basically online, and the highest star rating that you can earn with an automated rating is 2 stars. Many programs around the state have completed technical rating. Technical ratings are ratings that you would go through after you have had the assistance of a technical consultant for a few months, probably. Your technical consultant will work with you, help you prepare some specific documentation, and at the end of your technical assistance hours, will do a review and verify some certain things in your documentation. And the highest star level that you could earn through a technical rating is 3 stars. And then finally, after that, the most comprehensive type of rating that you could go through with YoungStar is a formal rating. And the formal rating includes basically all of the components of a technical rating. You work with a TC, you receive technical assistance, you're eligible for a microgrant, your TC helps you prepare different types of documentation, explains things to you, and then we'll verify several different things, and we'll review those in a few minutes, but they will actually double check some things and enter those things into the rating, and then when they've verified all of those, we call that a minimum points verification. Once they've completed that process, they hand your program over to be formally rated. And basically what happens if you go through that process is, for most of you, your program will end up in my caseload initially, and when there is room in another formal rater's caseload, I will assign it out to another formal rater to complete. I do complete some, but not as many as I used to. So the formal rating then is a whole process, and we're going to go through, that's the purpose of tonight's webinar. We're going to go through that entire process tonight, step by step, and hopefully help you feel familiar and comfortable with each step of that. Like I mentioned, there's a minimum points verification, and this will take place at the end of your technical assistance time with your TC. So during we call it a FRO verification visit, your TC will actually verify that you meet these following requirements. They will look at your self-assessment and your quality improvement plan. They will review your budget, your process for reviewing your budget, your record keeping and tax completion. They will also review, or they'll review menus, or they will look at documentation related to your participation in the child and adult care food program. And they will also look at your allergy policy. And once all of those have been verified, they will run a rating simulation in our case management software, and that will let them know, that will confirm that your staff or if you're a family child care provider, that you yourself, your education meets at least 4 or 5-star requirements to move forward. We don't want to pass people on for formal rating if they don't have a chance of earning 4 or 5 stars because their education levels do not meet the requirements. And so that's why that little bit of verification is done as well. And after that's all finished, your technical consultant notifies me, and then we move forward with the formal rating process. During the formal rating, the formal rater will verify these following requirements. They will look at your business practices, which are required for 4 stars, and that's there's business practices in both family child care and in group child care. They look a little different, but it's still business practices. And then in group child care, there's model work standard requirements, or in family child care, there's policies to reduce risk. And those are required for 5 stars, and those will be reviewed. Even if you're not trying to earn 5 stars, you could still earn that point for those items. And then Andrea is showing me that there is a question, so I'm going to take that.
So I thought this better be answered quickly. Can you hear me? Did I unmute
Yes.
myself correctly? Okay. So Mary's wondering, what's an allergy policy?
Good question. An allergy policy is a policy that you would have written and included in your handbook for parents and also for staff probably, but mostly for parents, that lets them know what you will do to provide for their child if their child has a food allergy. And that's why it's actually included in this. Sorry about that. I don't know what that was. It's included in the verification of indicator D11, which is under health and wellness, because it's specific to food allergies. And so what we want to make sure is that you have made some kind of provision. If a child is allergic to milk, let's say, that you either have a policy that will require the parents to provide the milk substitute, or that you will provide a milk substitute, and also what you will do, how you will notify your staff, and how you will deal with it if that child is exposed to that allergen. Is there a follow-up question to that, or is that clear? I hope. Okay. Okay, so then I'll just wrap up these. Indicator B41 and B42, these are the environment rating scale observations, which are obviously only completed if a program is going through formal rating. And if you want to earn 4 stars, you need to have an average overall score of 4. And if you want to earn 5 stars, then you would want that average overall score to be 5. And that's for family child care, where there's only 1 observation completed. There's just the 1 observation. We would take your overall score. But in many group programs, most group programs, there are multiple observations completed. Let's say, for example, you have to have 1 ITERS observation, 1 ECHRS observation, and 1 school age observation, which we call SACRS. We would take the 3 overall scores and average those together, and that would be your average overall score. And then in addition, you will need to earn some optional points to either move to 4 or 5 stars. You have to get these certain minimums, but then you also have to have some optional points, because you do need to earn enough points to be at 4 or 5 stars. Okay, a few reminders. Indicator C.2.2, which is your business practices indicator, is required to earn 4 stars. In both group and family programs, that indicator is fairly comprehensive. And one thing I do want to mention is that when I'm talking about these indicators right here related to business practices and health practices and policies, these are not things that are looked at when we're doing environment rating scales observations. These are all of your paperwork that your technical consultant is helping you prepare and helping you organize. So I don't want you to think this is part of your observation. It's part of our visit and verification, but it's paperwork review. And note that next bullet, most business practices policies must be in writing, and they must be available for review on the day of your first formal rating site visit. So it's very important for you as a family child care provider or a center director or whoever's responsible for putting together your YoungStar documentation to be sure that you have carefully reviewed the evaluation criteria document that your formal rater will email to you, and that you have pulled together the documentation that's required and you have it ready on the first day of your rating observation window. And we're going to go over all of that, but I just want to really emphasize that it's supposed to be available the first day. Indicator C23 is for model work standards if you're in a group program, or it's policies to reduce risk if you're a family child care provider, and that point is required to earn 5 stars. And as a part of the model work standards, a written document describing the process of maximizing your staff engagement and a written action plan are required to earn that point. So that needs to be emphasized as well. Yes, there's a question coming in.
So what is considered a school-age program?
A school-age program, well, that's a good question. In YoungStar, we talk about 3 different tracks. There's track 1, which is family child care. Track 2 is group child care, and most commonly that includes infant, toddler, preschool, and school-age classrooms. And then track 3 is school-age only. So school-age classrooms can be present in a group child care center, what most of us would maybe call a daycare center, or child care, traditional, or school-age child care programs can be located in schools and might only be school-age programs. I hope that answered that question, but feel free to send a follow-up if there's more. Also, there are frequently school-age children enrolled in family child care programs, but regardless of the ages of the children enrolled in family, they are always rated or observed using the Vickers rating scale, and they have a separate evaluation criteria document. Okay, this is a very important reminder. Completing the formal rating process does not guarantee that you will earn 4 or 5 stars. It is entirely possible to go through the whole process, technical assistance, verifying your minimum points, having your environment rating scales observations, and your formal rater reviewing your business practices paperwork, and still end up at 3 stars. It does not happen very often, but it does happen sometimes. So we just want you to be aware of that. There is no guarantee that you will be 4 or 5 stars. This is a good time for questions. Andrea built in a little break here. So if you've got any, she'll let me know.
We'll just wait a minute to give people a chance to type. And Toya, if you have a question, can you please I see your hand is raised, but I can't unmute you. Can you just type your question into the chat box? So just so everybody knows, so I do see a couple raised hands, but we've got such a big group that we won't be unmuting people tonight. And so if you have a question, you should be able to see the chat box. We showed it right at the beginning of the webinar. There is a place to type in your question and then hit send.
Can you see my screen right here? Can you see where I've opened it up and there's the chat box down here?
So we don't see that part of your dashboard.
Okay. Okay, so I was trying to be helpful.
All right. So can you explain the written document for staff engagement and action plan?
Yes, that's a part of the model work standards point, and it's not a specific document that we provide to you. We do not have a template for that. What it is, if you are attempting to earn the model work standards point, you will have engaged in a strategic planning process with your staff, and the document that we're referencing is a brief narrative that you have written that lets the rater know, or anybody who would review it, what your staff did, how they participated in that process. It will not be enough for you to just provide for review your meeting agenda and your meeting minutes and a staff sign-in sheet. You will also need to provide some brief narrative that tells us how the staff that attended that meeting were involved in discussions about what are some goals that they might be proposing for your program over the next year? How did they prioritize those goals? How did they identify who was going to work on them and how you were going to measure if you'd made progress? That's that document we're talking about. And it's just something that you create and write up, you know, maybe a paragraph or two.
Well, and there's another question here. You might have to give us a little more information, Lily. She says, why wouldn't you get 5-star in that case? Do you know what she's referring to?
Well, I'm wondering if she means if you've completed a 5-star requirement, why you might not earn 5 stars. I'm guessing that that's it. And so you need to have a minimum of 33 points in addition to meeting minimum requirements for 5 stars, like the Model Work Standards point for group programs or in family child care. That would be the policies to reduce risk. And also if you have an average overall score of 5 or higher on your observations. But if you complete those and earn those points, but you only have a total of 30 points, you still would not be 5 stars, because 5 stars requires that you have those minimums plus a minimum of 33 points, which is why it's important to earn some optional points.
So, and Lily said yes, that was what she was asking, so thank you. And so another question, so if you went through the formal rating last year, this year you didn't, do you have to apply for it all over again?
Correct. If you, each year, that's a really good question, and it's not just related to formal rating, it's actually related to YoungStar in general, I think. When you first started participating in YoungStar, you completed a contract, and your contract basically has an expiration date. We call it your anniversary date, but it has an end date. And that end date is the date by which each year you need to send in your renewal materials. And so that's the first part. You have to, if you are interested in earning Wisconsin shares through the enrollment of children who qualify, then you are required to participate in YoungStar. And so it's important for you to turn in your renewal materials each year, sorry. And then if you're going to be rated, automated, then I'm not even actually sure what that process is. I think it's just returning in your renewal, and then that will happen automatically when you select an automated rating. But if you're going to go through technical rating, you're going to identify that, and you're going to be assigned to a technical consultant again. And I believe that as much as possible, you get assigned to the same technical consultant from one year to the next. Unless your TC happens to leave or something, then you might get a new one. And then you would select to be technically rated at the end of your TA hours. And if you want to go through formal rating, you would select that. Now, it would be possible to go through formal rating 1 year and then, for whatever reason, choose not to go through formal rating again. What you would need to understand about that is that if you went through formal rating one time and you earned 4 stars, and the next year you decided that you did not want to go through formal rating, then at your anniversary date, your star rating would not remain 4 stars. It can't remain 4 stars unless you go through formal rating again. It would drop automatically. So if you want to remain at 4 stars or move up to 5 stars, or if you want to move from 3 stars up to one of those, you will have to go through formal rating each year in order to do that, to earn it and to maintain it. Any other questions?
You know, there's just one more question. There's one question that I know you're going to get to. So, Carol, that's why I'm not asking that yet. But if we don't answer that, please, we'll come back to it. But there's just a little more clarification wanted on optional points to get 30 points for the 5-star, which seems...
You need 33 points for the 5-star. And we will be going over the different ways to earn points. Many of the points are optional points, and a lot of them are usually, I tend to think of the largest group of them being child outcomes points, things related to WEML's alignment for your curriculum, individual child assessments and intentional planning, things like that. But but other points are technically optional. The model work standards point is an optional point if you're going for 4 stars. It's not required. It's only required if you're trying to earn 5 stars. There's a physical activity point. All of the training points are considered optional points, like completing WEML's training, completing pyramid model training, things like that. Those are not required for any star level, but they become necessary in order to get enough points. So I think we'll be addressing optional points throughout this process, and in the other webinars too. We will probably cover them. So if it looks good, I'm going to move along. Okay, excellent. The formal rating process, now we're just going to go through what you can expect, each of the steps in this process. And again, you can shoot some questions in and we'll probably get to them through this, but if you have something that needs to be addressed right away, let us know. Okay, the first thing that will happen is that you will complete a formal rating request and submit that to your technical consultant. This will likely happen very near the end of your technical assistance hours. This will be when you are actually deciding, yes, I'm going to go through formal rating, and if you choose not to go through formal rating, you would not complete this request. Your technical consultant would just complete your technical rating with you at your last TA visit. After you have submitted that formal rating request, your technical consultant generally notifies me that they have done that. It doesn't always happen that way, but usually I get an email saying that this program is going for formal rating and I put them in your caseload. And so then it's my job to make an initial contact with you. Generally, I try to do that within the first 2 to 3 business days. Sometimes, depending on my calendar, I can't get to that right away, but it's usually within the week from when I first received that request. And my initial contact with you will almost always be an email letting you know that I have received your formal rating request, and this summer that contact has also let you know that you are in line waiting to be formally rated, because we had very, very many programs submit for formal ratings this summer. It is also our goal to assign you to a formal rater within 1 week. For those of you who've been participating at all this summer, you know that that did not work that way this summer because we had so many programs and we just did not have the rater capacity to get them all assigned within a week. But we are working through that long queue, and programs have been very patient, and we're getting there. So in a perfect world, we get you assigned out within a week. Once that happens, the formal rater that has you in their caseload will make a contact with you. We call that an initial program contact, and that is done by phone. During that phone call, your formal rater will share her or his contact information, email and phone contact information. Together you will set the observation window, and your observation window is the 4 weeks during which you should expect to have your formal rater come out and do your observation. As you know, or maybe not, but your observation is not scheduled. The best that we do is give you a 4-week window, and then the rater shows up unannounced sometime during those 4 weeks. So after they set that observation window with you, then you will have the opportunity to choose up to 5 blackout dates. And those dates are days that the formal rater will not come to your program and do an observation. So the most commonly used reasons for blackout dates are because you're taking a vacation, or for family child care, it's usually because you have a vacation or some other kind of appointment, possibly a field trip. For group child care, it's maybe when a lead teacher is on vacation, possibly when the director's on vacation, could also be times when you have a regular field trip scheduled or something like that. So bear in mind that you get a 4-week observation window, and in those 4 weeks you get 5 blackout dates. Your formal rater will discuss with you what your daily and weekly schedule is. So if there's something special that you do every Tuesday, you maybe take a trip to the library, or every Thursday afternoon you celebrate all the birthdays in the center, whatever it is, that's information that's helpful to share with the rater. It won't necessarily change anything, but it's just good for them to know. They also will like to know what time you serve breakfast, if you serve a morning snack, what time that would be, what time lunch is, if you have a scheduled sort of preschool time, what is the block of time that occurs, and that just helps them prepare for their arrival time so that they can plan that correctly, because in a formal rating observation, your rater has to observe at least one meal time. And it's nice if they can see the beginning of nap, although they don't have to, because they will be there in the afternoon for a lot of these anyway, and they'll see it even if it's after the observation's finished. The next thing that your rater will do will be to confirm the evaluation criteria that will be used. The evaluation criteria is a document that I referenced earlier. It's a lengthy document that is put together by DCF, and it's all of the other things, those business practices and all of your paperwork, you know, portfolios and lesson plans and all of that kind of stuff that we review. The Department of Children and Families has created this document to give us all a lot of guidance around how to score those things. And so because that's updated with some changes, usually minor changes from one year to the next, we will let you know which version of that will be used with your evaluation, and then we will also email that document to you so that you have it. You should already have it because it's your technical consultant will have used that document with you to be prepared for your formal rating, but we send it to you again just to be sure. And then your rater will also review the whole formal rating process, what you can expect each day. And so that will be this part. They'll tell you what you can expect on an observation day. And the first part of an observation day will be your rater will arrive and have a brief interview with either if you're a family child care provider, it will be with you. If it's a group center, it will likely be with the lead teacher. Possibly there will be a question for the director. And it's usually things like, how many children do you allow in this room at one time? Does anybody have a food allergy? Is anybody taking medication prescribed by a doctor? And anybody with a diagnosed disability? Those are some questions we ask at the very beginning. Then the rater will complete a minimum of a 3-hour observation using the rating scale that's appropriate for the classroom or the program type. So family would have the family child care. An infant or toddler room would have the ITERs. A preschool room where the majority of children are between the ages of 2.5 and 5 would have an ECHRS, and school-age classrooms would have the SACRS completed. You must provide a minimum of 2 consecutive hours of child care in order to be eligible for a formal rating observation. So there is the occasional but pretty rare program that does not offer 2 hours of child care, and then they're not eligible for the formal rating process. After the 3-hour observation has been completed, different formal raters do this a little bit differently, but there will be an interview of the provider or the lead teacher after the observation. Some formal raters will take a lunch break and go and work on scoring so that they know which questions they want to ask, and then they will come back after lunch and ask you those questions then. Some will work straight through, and that's just up to the rater. Typically, I think a lot of raters leave because it also allows providers and teachers to get kids settled, because usually we're finishing an observation sometime between 11 and 12, and that can be a very busy time in a child care program. That interview of the provider or the lead teacher after the observation can take anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. It's usually pretty quick, and it's questions about the observation, things that we didn't get to see. So that is not a part of the review of your paperwork. The review of all business and professional practices, paperwork, portfolios, and lesson plans, that is a more robust interview. And that can take anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hours. It's not typical that it take longer, but I have had them take longer than that. Yes, there's a question.
So do we need to have extra staff available so the interviews can be conducted, or do they occur right in the classroom?
Well, it's always best if you have somebody who can cover the classroom. And that can be tricky, obviously, for family child care providers because they're usually alone, which is why frequently with family we take a break and come back during nap time and try to take care of all of that during nap time once the kids have been settled. But otherwise, my recommendation would be that, yes, you have somebody who can go cover in the classroom for that interview of the lead teacher. And generally that's what we see happen.
And then is the 3 hours of observation in one classroom or multiple classrooms combined?
That's one classroom, one day, one classroom. So if you have a penguin room and a zebra room and a panda room, and the classroom that gets selected for the observation is the zebra room, then your rater will spend the full 3 hours in the zebra room that day.
And just one more on this, do you have to have your formal rating by your anniversary date?
No, your formal rating observations can actually happen after your anniversary date, and if that happens, the rating that you had, the star rating that you earned at the your last rating cycle will stand. That will be the star rating that you have until your formal rating is completed. But you do have to have all of your paperwork turned in, your renewal paperwork, to participate in YoungStar by your anniversary date.
And so someone says, if I go for the 4 and I don't make it, will I stay a 3-star?
Yes.
And what if it isn't possible to have an extra person to cover in the classrooms? Could that affect the score?
No. That will not affect your score at all. And if it's not possible to have somebody cover in your classroom and you're a group center, or as is the case for most family child care providers, please make that clear to your formal rater and make it clear that the rater will need to leave and take a break or work in your staff lounge or something for a while until maybe nap time, when it's a quiet time and they can go into the classroom and you in the classroom while the teacher is still in there.
And if you have multiple classrooms, how many would be observed? Is it a certain percentage of classrooms?
It is a certain percentage. It's a minimum of 1/3 of your classrooms. However, we have to do at least one observation in each of the age groups. And so the 3 age groups typically that you find in a child care center would be infant and toddler. That's one age group because it's covered by the ITERs, and then preschool, which is covered by the ECHRs, and then school age covered by the SACRs. So if you are a fairly small child care center and you have one infant toddler classroom and one preschool room and one school age classroom, you will have 100% of your classrooms observed because we have to use each rating scale once in your program. If you have 20 classrooms, you will have 7 observations completed, and we determined how many of each age group based on how many of those classrooms you have. And that information is shared with us when you complete your request for a formal rating observation, because part of that form asks for you to list all of the classrooms that you have and the age ranges that that classroom covers. So we look at that document, and if you list 20 classrooms, I say, okay, there's 6 of them are infant toddler, 7 of them are preschool, and all the rest of them are school age, and then I know how many of each type to assign to the rater.
So how does it work if you don't know about the visit ahead of time to have a replacement teacher there?
Well, generally we have people, you know that you have that 4-week observation, and so we have had, I've heard from family child care providers, for instance, who just have their sub on call for the 4 weeks of their window. And I mean, if we're coming out for family child care, we only come one time and do one observation, so as soon as we show up, they can take their sub off of being on call for the rest of the time. The same is basically true for group. If you have a sub or somebody that you would have a floater that you would maybe say, we're going to have you on call every day through this 4-week window until the observations are completed, then that person just knows they need to be available. They don't have to be available all year long, just those 4 weeks. And you know the 4 weeks that it will be because you will determine that with your rater on the phone in that initial contact. So you'll be able to give that person those parameters.
So there's several questions. I'm trying to figure out if you're going to answer any of these questions.
Okay.
So what happens if the school-aged children are at school during the rating?
Well, we don't observe the child care program while kids are at school. We would wait and observe them when they arrive after school. So in the summertime, when many child care centers run full-day school-age programs, that's easy. We come out during the day. But during the school year, your rater will speak with you about the hours that your school-age children are present. And some programs do not actually provide the 2 consecutive hours of school-age child care in order to be eligible for a SACRS observation. That does not mean that they are not eligible for formal rating, because we can still come out and do the ITRs and the ECRS observations, but then in that case you would not have a SACRS observation, because if there's not enough hours that the kids are in attendance, then we wouldn't come out and do it. Many programs or many people with whom I've spoken over the last couple of years get very nervous about having a school-age observation. And let me just tell you that you shouldn't be nervous about that. The SACRS observations generally score the highest of all of the environment rating scales observations. And that should basically make sense, because it's easier to have high quality classrooms for older children who can communicate with you what their needs are. So it is definitely, we believe as raters, to your advantage to have a school-age observation done. It's probably not to your disadvantage not to have it done. So if your rating time comes up and it's February and you just don't have kids for long enough, then we won't do it, and it's not going to hurt your score. But having it done will usually help your score.
So Anne, I hope that answered your question. If not, just please send me another question. And so what about an emergency, like the lead teacher is out for sickness or a family emergency? Will they come another day, the rater?
That's a good question, and I know that we will cover that, but I will mention it anyway, that when you are going through all of this with your formal rater on the phone, he or she should tell you that if you have an emergency some morning, whether it's related to your staff or just a power outage or a water main break or some weird thing that happens, and it is not going to be a good day for an observation, then you need to contact your formal rater as soon as possible. When I have programs that I'm rating, I tell them I don't care if it's even 3 in the morning. If you want to send me a text message, it's not going to wake me up, but at least when I wake up it will be there and I will know not to get on the road. Because we often have to travel anywhere from 1.5 to 3 hours each way to get to the programs we're rating. So it's much better for you to let us know before we get on the road if you do know. If you don't know, please contact us as soon as you do. I have actually been on my way to ratings 2 different times. This happened to me where while I was driving to the rating, I was contacted by a center director and I was informed that there was a reason not to come, and I turned around and went home. If we arrive at your child care program and you tell us that we will not be able to do the observation and you didn't notify us in advance and there was a reason, and you knew, then we will not be coming back. You will be allowed one time for an emergency, like somebody called in sick and there's some kind of legitimate emergency. But if it's something that you knew you had planned and you did not use a blackout date for it, and we arrive and you tell us we can't do the observation, then you will not be eligible to complete the formal rating process, and you will be technically rated, which means that you will not earn more than 3 stars. So it's very, very important. We will work with you. If you have an emergency and you contact us, we definitely will work with you, but it's important that you contact us.
So there's some general questions, but I think we should move on right now and see if they get answered, and then I'll circle back to them.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, After the observation and the review of all of your business practices paperwork, your formal rater will complete all of the scoring for the observation and also for that evaluation criteria document. For the observation, after completing the scoring, the rater will complete a narrative report. And many of you who've been through this before have seen a narrative report before. So basically, they will just write up in narrative form the indicators that stopped your score at any specific spot, so you know why you got the score that you did. When the rater has completed writing the reports, those reports are sent, for most people, they're sent to me, and I edit those for accuracy and for readability. And after they've been edited, they're sent back to the formal rater so they can make any changes or corrections that might be needed. And once they are finalized, I email those those reports to you, either the center director, the owner, the family child care provider, and they also get emailed to the formal rater. Very rarely we have a program that does not prefer to receive them by email, and that's fine. If you want to receive them in the mail, we can do that as well, but you would need to let your formal rater know that, and then I would make sure to mail those hard copies to you. Getting them by email is generally easier and quicker. After you have received the reports, the formal rater usually will give you a couple days to look them over, and then will contact you to schedule a final consultation. And at your final consultation, these are the things that you can expect. The formal rater will review your whole point total. That means they'll go over all of the different sections of the formal rating process. There's an education and training section, learning environment and curriculum, business practices, and health and wellness. And they'll have a point detail report that they'll review with you, and you will have the opportunity to sign off on that. That says that you have seen that document. Most of them will leave you with a copy of it as well. The rater will also be able to answer the questions that you have related to the classroom observations that were completed at your site. Because you have received the report, my recommendation would be that you take the time to review that and prepare some questions in advance. I think that this is most effective. I've seen this done a couple different ways, but I believe it's most effective when you let the teachers whose classrooms were observed review those reports and come up with their questions, since they really apply to them. It's very helpful. My experience has been to go back, with several programs, go back and attend a staff meeting where the staff are allowed to ask questions at that time about the observations, and that's helpful to all of the classrooms, even if their rooms weren't observed. But another thing that I saw a program do one time, this was a family child care provider, she actually photocopied the report and sent it to all of the families that were enrolled so that families would know the results and would have the opportunity to ask questions. And she gave me a list of all of the questions that the families had, and I was able to address those as well. And I thought that that was very useful. Your formal rater will also provide some recommendations and resources. Sometimes you will have requested those. Other times they're just things that maybe they have found helpful and useful, or that other programs have told them are helpful, and they would like to share those with you, even if maybe you didn't know that those resources were out there and so didn't know to ask. Here's another question break, if we've got some.
Okay, we do. Let me think. So this is related to something you just said. So is there a way for the narrative reports to be more positive and explain why they were scored that way for parents who read it online?
Oh, the reports are never put online for parents, so you don't need to worry about that. I promise you that. The one family child care provider who gave it to her parents actually photocopied it and handed it to those parents. We do not put those, the reports that you get from your observations are not public documents. They are not shared with parents. They are not shared with other programs. They really aren't even shared among raters. We don't really have time to be sharing all of that with each other. Although sometimes we ask questions because we want to be sure we're scoring something correctly, and we share specific circumstances we've seen. But so I don't know if that helps put your mind at ease. As far as can the reports be written more positively, we really do actually try. I know that the language, if you've read some of those reports, I know that they're very dry. They're very objective and fact-based. The raters are instructed to write just what they observed for each of the indicators where they're writing up what was scored off. However, in every one of those reports, if you go to the beginning of each subscale, you will see a section called subscale strengths, and each rater is required to write several sentences there that capture the strengths of that subscale. And so although those strengths are not embedded throughout the report in all of the different items, you should be able to capture each of those, and if you wanted to, copy those and put them in your newsletters and share those with parents. And I do read most of the reports from around the state, and I know the raters do a good job of communicating positives, but you have to know where to look for them.
And so are you rated in a 4K program?
DPI-funded 4K classrooms are not eligible for an observation. Let me just follow up to that, though. If you are a child care center that is in a collaborative relationship with the district in your town, and you provide classroom space for the district to operate a 4K classroom in your center, and you provide wraparound care for those children. So for instance, you're open from 6:30 a.m. until 6 p.m. and maybe you have before 4K care in that classroom from, let's say, 6:30 until 8:30, and then 4K children are present from maybe 8:30 until 11, somewhere around there, and then from 11 o'clock until your center closes at 6 p.m. you provide wraparound care. During those wraparound hours you may be eligible for a formal rating observation in that classroom. Technically you are, because those hours are not funded by DPI. However, we do not come out and observe during nap time and afternoon snack and kids going home, so most of the time if it's wraparound care in the afternoon, the classroom ends up not really being eligible for the observation. But it's not a foregone conclusion.
So just one more clarification about school age. So that the school age children need to be in attendance for more than 2 hours.
A minimum of 2 hours, correct. All children. I mean, any classroom. There are some preschool programs around the state, not very many, but there are some that only operate for 2 hours and 45 minutes. And those programs, although they do not meet the full 3 hours, which is ideal for an observation, as long as they meet for at least 2 hours, we can come out and rate them and do a formal rating observation. So it's usually the school age rooms that are impacted by that, but not exclusively.
And just a general idea, how long does it take for the formal rating to get back to you? And does that take place that year or the following year?
Okay, so I think what I understand that question to be is after your rater has completed all of your observations and all of your business practices review and your 4-week window is done, how long until you get your reports and you know your rating is completed? I believe that's the question. And usually, well, definitely within 4 weeks of your last observation. So if your program has to have 3 observations completed, within 4 weeks of the last observation, we have not ever had a program that has not had their information within 4 weeks. When we are not as busy as we've been this summer, it's usually within 2 weeks that they have their reports and their score, and we have marked the rating complete in our case management system. So it takes a little bit longer when we're all very busy.
And then the question about does that take place, I think it means that the new rating takes effect on the anniversary date.
Yes, it does. So let's say that you turned in all your renewal materials early and you turned in your formal rating request before your anniversary date and your observations were all completed and you received your reports before your anniversary date and you are going from 3 stars to 4 stars, your 4-star rating will take effect on your anniversary date, even though it was all completed beforehand. If all of it happens after your anniversary date, like I said earlier, the rating that you had before your formal rating will stand until your formal rating is completed. So if you were 3 stars, if your anniversary date is September 1st and you're 3 stars and you are rated and your rating is completed October 15th, your 3 stars will remain in effect until your rating is completed, but once it's completed, it will reflect back to your anniversary date. Your payments will not go back to that, but your rating will be made effective as of your anniversary date, so that you'll see that. I mean, that will be your rating until your next anniversary date, and it will stand.
A couple questions about accreditation. Do you talk about this separately?
I don't think so, because formal rating is a little different from accreditation.
Well, so if your center is accredited, does that mean you automatically get 5 stars, and does that last as long as you remain accredited?
Accreditation is an alternate path to 5 stars. There are different types of accreditation, and I believe, like, for instance, NACE accreditation is 5 stars, and City of Madison accreditation is 5 stars. I believe that NAFCC accreditation is 4 stars. And yes, whatever star rating you earn through your accreditation will stand on as long as you are accredited.
So here's back to parents. So what type of reports can be seen by parents? Accreditation came through our center and said that anyone can look up our center and see why we were given the points that we were given.
For accreditation? Okay, well, that may be true for accreditation. I'm not sure about that because we don't, YoungStar staff, formal raters, do not do accreditation. We do not evaluate accreditation. So that I don't know. When you go through formal rating, that point detail report document that I referenced earlier that your rater will bring back at your final consultation and will review with you, that document shares with you your point totals in the different categories. Like I said, there's a category for education and training, a category for learning environment and curriculum, one for business and professional practices, and one for health and wellness. And your YoungStar certificate will, if you go through YoungStar, will have those point totals on. It will just be a point total, though. It will not give any narrative. It's just points on your certificate. If you go through accreditation, and that is how you earn your YoungStar rating, you will still receive a YoungStar certificate, but it will not have any of those points on it because if you're accredited, we're not coming out and reviewing any of that.
So really all parents could see would be the rating, the number of stars.
They'll see the number of stars, and if you went through YoungStar rating, they'll see those point totals, but not if you're accredited, right?
Okay.
They will not see the reports unless you choose to share them. I often encourage my programs to share the positives from their reports, to put them in newsletters or to post them on their parent boards or something, because there's always positives. Every single program has positives. And so I encourage that, but that's entirely up to the program to share that.
And so when doing formal rating for school age, how many have to be how many children, I assume you mean, have to be in attendance to be rated?
Okay, well, the rule for, and this is for all observations, is that you have to have 50% of the children who are enrolled to attend at that time need to be present. So if you have 15 kids that are enrolled after school every day, then 50% of those kids need to actually be present, so 8 of them, in order for us to complete an observation. The same holds true in family child care, and what we see more commonly in family child care is many part-time children, and they attend different days of the week at different times. So this is one of the things your formal rater will hash out with you on the phone in that initial contact. You will talk to them and say, I have 4 kids who attend Monday, Wednesday, Friday all day, and Tuesdays and Thursdays I have 7 kids who come in the morning, and then I have 2 more that come in the afternoon. So your rater knows that if she's coming out on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, there needs to be at least 2 kids present, because 50% of the kids enrolled to attend on those dates would be 2 children. And if you have 7 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, she needs to see at least 4 kids on one of those days if she comes out on a Tuesday or Thursday. Group centers have that. It's the same rule. It's just that we don't see quite as much generally fluctuation in attendance in group centers, but certainly it does exist, and so that's the rule we follow.
And so more on school age. So is that 2 hours both before and after school, or just after school, or just before school?
Good question. It's 2 consecutive hours. So typically when it's the school year, there's about an hour and a half of before school care, and we never come out and observe. We have never, to my knowledge, done a before school observation. And then it's more typical that there would be anywhere from 2 to 3 hours of after school care. So that's when the SACRS observations are done during the school years after school.
And how do you choose the classroom if you have multiple age groups in a classroom? Which one do you use?
So that's a good question, although that might actually be 2 questions. The way I hear that is if you have multiple age ranges in one classroom, like let's say it's a 2 to 4-year-old classroom, which is it going to be ITERs or is it going to be ECHRs? So for within one classroom, we select the rating scale to use based on the enrollment of the children. So if you have 5 kids who are under 2.5 and you have 14 kids who are over 2.5 in the same room, which you would never have because that exceeds the group size requirements of DCFs or licensing. So that's a bad example, but regardless, because you have more than 50% of the children in the room who are over 2.5, we would use ECHRs. If you have a 2 to 3-year-old room and 4 of the children are 2.5 to 3 and 2 are under 2.5, that would be an ECHRs room. If 4 of them are younger than 2.5 and 2 of them are older, then it's an ITERs room. That's generally where we see that split, is between ITERs and ECHRs. However, it can happen with ECHRs and SACRS. It just doesn't happen as frequently there. But the rule is 50% of the enrollment has to be one age or the other, and that's the rating scale we use. But the other question that I thought might be included in that was if we have, let's say you have 4 preschool classrooms, how do we select the classroom that will be observed? And that will be a random selection, and the director or somebody designated by the director usually it's the director, will select out of a little cup or whatever. I have a little plastic cup that I take with me. The night before I'm planning to come out and do an observation, I will have written down all of the classrooms on little individual sheets of paper and identified if they're ITERs or ECHRs, and I'll put the lead teacher's name on those, and I put those in that cup. The next morning when I get to the center, I will review all of those. I'll take them out of that cup and say to the director, is this lead teacher present today? And everything is normal in that room. And if they all are, they all go back into the cup, and the director will reach in and select one, and that's the classroom we observe. And so the very first time we come out to do an observation, we don't know as the raters, and you don't know certainly as the provider, if we're going to be doing an ITERs or an ECHRs. We generally know it won't be SACRS. If we show up in the morning, it's not going to be SACRS because your SACRS is in the afternoon. But
and so if you have more than one classroom being observed, they're all in the same 4-week window?
That is correct, unless there's just too many, but we've never had that happen yet. I think the biggest program we've ever rated yet had 7 observations that had to be completed, and we do 2 observations a week, so we can get 7 done in 4 weeks.
And the 3-hour observation is in each room.
Correct. Each room that gets observed will have its own 3-hour observation and interview with their lead teacher.
And so what if it's equal amounts? If it's a mixed age group and it's equal amounts, you would then choose one or the other, the rater would, or?
We've never actually had it happen yet where it's literally split 50-50. If that is the case, my general feeling on that is that if you literally have 4 children in the room that are under 2.5 and 4 that are over 2.5, then we're going to use an Eckers, because all of the kids in the room are getting older. None of them are getting younger. They're never, that particular group of children is never going to get any younger and be an Itters group again. So if that group is going to remain together through the school year or through your program year in that room, eventually it's going to be an Eckers room. That's, like I said, we've never actually had to make that determination, to my knowledge. The other thing that I would do if I was out in the classroom, I would ask enough other questions. What is your enrollment in the room? I mean, maybe you have 7 kids enrolled and you have 6 present. But if there's 7 enrolled, then it won't be exactly split 50-50. If you have 8 enrolled, and so it could be split 50-50, but only 7 are present, then it won't be exactly. And then I would use the kids who are present. But generally speaking, we're probably going to average it up to Eckers because, like I said, kids are getting older in the room.
So now I think that you should go on to the next section, and then I'll make sure that there's a couple more general questions that we'll answer at the end.
Okay. So some time ago, I actually asked each of the formal raters that works for WICA to send me a tip, one tip from each person that they thought was the most important thing that they would like to tell providers. And interestingly enough, every single rater sent me something different, and I thought that was wonderful because then I got these tips for success, and I think that they cover a lot of the ground that we need to. And so these are actual tips from actual raters, and I think you will find them helpful. First of all, become familiar with that evaluation criteria document. Your formal rater will mention it on the phone. She will send it to you in an email. Please, I'm asking you as a formal rater myself, open that up and make sure you look at it. I have been to programs where they say, yeah, I got it, I never opened it, I've never seen this document before. That will not be helpful to you. It will be the most helpful if you're familiar with it. The next one is use the resources on the YoungStar website. If you're not familiar with the YoungStar website, and most of the time we just call it the public site, you can Google YoungStar and you will come to the public site, or you can ask your technical consultant and he or she will be able to point you in that direction. But there is a link on that website that has tips and tools for providers, and I would encourage you to become familiar with those tips and tools on that site. Okay, the requirements related to child outcomes must be met for each child. The child outcomes points, these are some optional points I referenced earlier, and they have to do with completing individual child assessments and coming up with individual goals for each child, and keeping portfolios for each child, and then some of the other points are, well, one of the other points is related to having your curriculum aligned with Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards. What it's important for you to know is that those requirements for each kid have to be met for each child. So if you have 50 portfolios that we have to review, all 50 portfolios have to meet the requirements. So what the formal rater is going to do is start reviewing portfolios, and as soon as they come to a portfolio that does not meet all of the requirements, they're going to stop reviewing them because you will not be earning that point. And so that's important for you to know that each child has to meet all of the requirements for those points in order to earn those points for your program. The next bullet, this is very important and it will make it easier for you, is to gather the required documentation in one place. It must be available for review the first day that the formal rater visits. And different programs and even technical consultants have different ways of doing this. You can put it in a binder. I've seen programs that actually have all this documentation in a file box. Whatever your system is, have it all together in one place. And it's also really helpful if you've taken the time to go through it and flag the documents or the places where you have certain things, like if we have to see a policy about staff discipline, if you could flag that in your personnel handbook, we can go right to that page, see it, and mark it as met. So that's really helpful. That'll make that day go quicker for you. It'll be much less stressful. Yes, there's a question?
So back to the child outcome. So what's all needed to be in the child's portfolio?
I'm actually going to, if we have some time, I'll come back to that because that's really specific to that. And I don't have the evaluation criteria document with me, so I'm going to try to do that off the top of my head. So can we come back to that one in a minute? Because that's an optional point and not everybody might be worried about that. So just wrapping up with these tips for success. Prepare for your observations by reviewing the environment rating scales that are appropriate for your classrooms or your program type, the notes for clarification, and the Wisconsin interpretations. The environment rating scales are not available on the YoungStar public site on that tips and tools page because those are actual little booklets, the little spiral bound books that we bring. Your technical consultant probably has a copy that she would be happy to share with you, or I know that you can buy those. You can purchase those online. But the notes for clarification and the Wisconsin interpretations are definitely on that YoungStar website. You can download those. Those are in PDF form. You can print them off and you will have them for review. If you have multiple classrooms, you can print them off for every teacher in your program and they will not have an excuse for not knowing them. You could consider asking your technical consultant to do a mock observation, which would mean that he or she comes in and does either a part of an observation or maybe a whole one. And then we would ask that you pay close attention to the definitions of those two critical things, much of the day for ITERs and family child care and substantial portion of the day for ECHRs. Those are concepts that can be very sticky for you, but there is explanation in the notes for clarification, especially about much of the day. And we will definitely be going over those concepts later in this webinar series when we cover the ITERs and the ECHRs in more specific detail. Okay, so real quick I'm going to go kind of revisit that question about what has to be in child portfolios. And like I said, I do not have the evaluation criteria document in front of me, so I'm just going off of memory. There has to be some work samples. There has to be some kind of documentation about how a child thinks and learns and interacts with other children. Typically we see the child's individual assessments, individual child assessments or screeners are kept in portfolios. There should be goals for each child in their portfolios. The individual child assessment is not required to be in the portfolio, but we often see it there. Individual child goals must be in the portfolio, along with some kind of assessment summary where you're identifying both the goal and then any progress that's been made on that goal, and there's supposed to be monthly updates to that. So since I know that that was pretty vague and not as specific as you may have liked, I'm going to recommend that you look at the evaluation criteria document, and all of those are available on the YoungStar public site that I've been referencing. And there's, like I said earlier, there's 3 of them. One is for family child care providers, one is for group centers and includes infant, toddler, preschool, and school age, and one is specifically for school age only programs. So find the evaluation criteria document that is correct for you, for your program type, and you will see a lengthy section in there about portfolios, and that will spell it all out, because I'm sorry I don't have all of that language right in front of me.
Well, and I mean, I'm trying to pull it up, but there's so many pages here.
Oh, it's not, yeah.
So I don't want to dig through it either.
No, it's lengthy.
It
But
is.
if you're working with a technical consultant, or even if you're finished with your technical assistance hours, but you still are comfortable contacting your TC, you could email or call that individual, and they will be able to email that document to you, or possibly even just the pages that you need. If you email me, and there's my email address, if you email me, I will send you the document that you need, and I will let you know specifically which pages address the questions that you're asking. So I can do that.
Okay, so a couple more questions. Is it possible to earn enough points for a 4-star but not meet all the minimum requirements so you don't achieve the rating?
Yes, it is possible, and that's the same as possible for 5 stars. It's possible to have 34 points but not get the model work standards point, which is required for 5 stars. I have actually completed a rating of a program that had enough points for 4 stars, but they did not have the observation scores to meet 4 stars, and so they remained at 3 stars. That does not happen that often, but it does sometimes. So yes, that is possible.
Well, and Mary did ask, what percentage of those who go for formal rating achieve 4 or 5 stars? Do you have that data?
I'm sure that Aaron Granetsky
Somebody
has
else
that.
would hear it, Wika,
Yes,
yeah.
but off the top of my head, I do not know. But I will tell you that I think in all of the 3 years that I've been doing formal rating, I can only think of one of my programs that went through formal rating that ended up 3 stars. So it's a small handful around the state. I mean, most programs. Let me just say that we are your friends. Your formal rater is your friend. Your technical consultant probably feels more like your friend than we do, but we want you to be successful. And so we try very hard. There's nothing we can do about your observation. I mean, you have to perform while we're there. But we really do try very hard to help you get your hands on the policies while we're there that we need to see, and all of that. We want to see you be successful. So I know that it is not at all uncommon for formal raters to complete observations and reviews of practices and then call me, or sometimes we actually even send emails to the authors of the rating scales to get clarification about questions, because we know how important those scores are for you. And so whenever we can, we make sure you get the points.
Diane just pointed out that, yes, Diane, the email is not correct. There are 2 O's in childhood, not 3. So,
oh, look at that.
when I send the survey evaluation, which will probably be either tomorrow or the next day, I'll include Rebecca's email address, and I'll also include the link to the page, the Department of Children and Families website page, where you can find a lot of this. It's a dense website. There's a lot of information there, so you've got to be patient looking for stuff, I will say.
But don't hesitate to reach out to a rater. If you have already been through formal rating and so you know a rater because you've already communicated with them in the past, even if you're not going to do it again this year or you're not quite there yet, I'm sure that that person will not mind if you reach out to them. I also know, because I talk to technical consultants a lot, that they don't mind, even if they have finished working with you, they do not mind if you reach out to them and ask them for how to find something. Like I said, we really, really want you to be successful. We want you to have the information ahead of time. So, you know, nobody will mind. If you can't find it, call or email any one of us who works for YoungStar, and we'll help you get it.
And so here's a funny question. Our group center knew exactly when the rater was coming. Is that not typical?
The only way that I would think you would know exactly when the rater is coming is if it's the last day of your window. And then all the other days have obviously been ruled out. Otherwise, no, it is not typical. It is not supposed to be an appointment. I do not know who the rater was. Right. But you should tell me, because I should know.
Yes.
I should follow up on that. I would appreciate knowing that.
A couple questions about formal education. So I received my infant toddler credential this month, but I have to inform I think you mean technical consultant, or does the registry notify her?
Well, what you need to do is send that into the registry. Your technical consultant will be very happy to hear that you've earned your infant toddler credential, but she will not be able to do anything. If you contact her and tell her about it, she's going to tell you to contact the registry, that you need to submit your documentation to them. Because from our end, and this is actually, it's simple to understand, but at the same time hard to understand, that we do not have the ability to enter any of that information into our case management software. They did not even give us those questions to answer, like have you earned X number of credits or completed these trainings. All of that is done through the registry. And as you all know, the registry is a completely different agency from us. They are their own business, and they keep track of all of that. So it is very, very important that when you complete trainings or any kind of education, that you submit that documentation to the registry. Like us, it takes them some time to complete processing that work. In a perfect world, they're done with it all in a couple weeks. Sometimes they get backed up, just like we do with formal rating, and it takes 4 weeks, or for them occasionally it takes a little bit longer. And that's why as soon as you have it, you need to get it to them. Once they have it processed, their system talks to our system every night, well, 6 nights a week, overnight they update. And so whatever gets processed by the registry, when the systems talk to each other at night, then that registry information is pulled over into our system, and then we can see it the next day. And that's the only way that in our system you get credit for your education and training, is that the registry system has to push it into our system. So even if you show us registry certificates and training certificates from things you've been to, there is no place or no way for us to enter it. So I can't stress that often or hard enough that it's really important that you get that to the registry.
So Tanya, what are the books that you use for assessments? So Rebecca's referring to the environment rating scale books. And you can get those through Red Leaf Press and a variety of other places. So if you want, here I'll include that link in the follow-up email too, because that's easy to do. Sorry, reading lots of questions.
That's okay. I actually bought my first copies of the environment rating scales from barnesandnoble.com. Before I was even doing these ratings down in Florida, I was interviewing for a job, and they said that these were the things you had to know, and I had never heard of them, so I just looked them up at Barnes and Noble and bought them. So that's another place you can get them. The rating scale books themselves, the little spiral bound books, are roughly $20. I think like $18.95 or something like that. And I'm guessing the price is very similar at Red Leaf Press or any other place where you would be buying those. If you are interested in investing in the All About books, there is an All About the Eckers and All About the Itters. Those are the only two that there are. Those books are much closer to $70 a piece, and I believe those are only available, those might only be available like through Kaplan or something. I don't know.
A couple of people have mentioned Amazon has them too, whether that's
okay, wonderful.
the big ones or just the spiral bound ones, I'm not sure. So yes, I'm sure they're available a lot of places on the web. So a couple questions kind of about anniversary date. So can you decide later that you want to do a formal rating or only at your anniversary? And then once you've got your rating, if you didn't get the bump in star rating that you want, you have to wait another year before you can have a rating.
That part is correct, yes. If you go through formal rating, if you went through formal rating in 2013 and you were already 4 stars and you came out 4 stars again and you were really hoping to be 5 stars, you will have to wait till your 2014 rating to go through it again to try for your 5 stars again. Same is true if you were 3 stars and you ended up still at 3 stars. The only way that you can add on or change your rating is if you have decided to go through technical rating, which if you remember back to the beginning of the webinar, we said that particular type of rating does not include the observations. You would not have an ITERS, an ECHRS, a FICRS, or a SACRS observation completed. And you go through technical rating, and after you have completed the technical rating, if there's any change in education levels of your staff or something like that, that you are qualified to go through formal rating within 90 days. But it has to be within 90 days of completing that technical rating. You can request to have the formal rating observations completed. And if there's a formal rater that has time in their caseload to complete those observations, it may happen. It's not a guarantee, because DCF's position on that is that you already were rated and you're only promised one rating a year. So if you chose technical rating first, went through technical rating, and decided that you really wanted to try formal, they will not promise that that will happen. We've had some of those requests come through, and every time we've been able to honor them. I will say that had we gotten any of those this summer, we would not have been able to honor them because we just were too full. We're too busy. But in the past, we've been able to honor them. So, but it is, like I said, it's a request. It's a second, technically a second rating in a year, and so it is not guaranteed.
And so did you say you can find the notes of clarification and Wisconsin interpretations online?
Yes, if you go to the YoungStar public website, on the first page of that, there's a box near the top that says for providers. If you click on for providers, that will take you to another page. That page should be like your best friend. In the middle on the right will be a box that's got a bunch of links in it, and there's policies and information and tips and tools and all of those different things, and one of those links will take you to the Wisconsin interpretations and notes for clarification.
Sorry, I am just taking
Okay.
control back. So here's the Department of Children and Families website. It's
Yes.
dcf.wisconsin.gov, and so Rebecca's talking about the for providers
Or
tab.
see this box here, get started with YoungStar here? That box right there has all those links. Yep, if you scroll down right there, yep. So let me just see, I think YoungStar, I'm not sure which one of these, maybe the YoungStar details. If you click on that one, that might be the one that takes you to where, oh, no, that's not it.
Well,
Or,
point detail.
There's a point detail. Okay, keep going.
But you want the evaluation criteria.
Look, there's Wisconsin interpretations are right there. So that's where you would find the Wisconsin interpretations. But then if you go back a page, if you wanted well, the best one is the best link there is the one that says tips and tools. And if you click on that tips and tools page, this page is loaded with links. It's overwhelming, but it's everything you're going to need. Look on the left-hand side there, quality indicators. You'll see the evaluation criteria, and it's available in different languages for those different group types, group, family, and school age. There's the point details. Down under the environment rating scales, right underneath that, if you click on the link that just says environment rating scales information, then this will bring you to this page, and on this page it will have, look, you will see the clarification documents. There's ITERS, ECHRS, FICRS, and SACRS, and those are the additional notes for clarification. Yep, right there. If you click on that, that will take you to a PDF. And these are when I talk about the notes for clarification, this is the document that I'm referencing. This document gets updated for each of the rating scales once a year. At the beginning of the year, you can see that we made a minor revision in February of this year. But usually we roll these out January 1st, and then they don't change the whole year, so that everybody being rated that year is being rated with the same rules. And when we, yeah, there's much of the day. But when we make changes, the changes for any given year are in red. So this year, when you look at this document, everything that's in red was new for 2014, is some kind of change for 2014. And this is the ITERs. So there's one for ECHRs, one for family, and one for school age as well. So that's where you find those.
All right, so I see that it's 8:02, so I want to wrap up for those that would like to go. And, sorry. And then we'll stay on the line. There are a couple more questions that we can answer for you. And, you know, Rebecca will be happy, I think, to stay as long as is needed.
Yes.
Oops. All right. That's not what I want. So, in terms of registry, once again, sorry about this. Once again, I'll be sending an email tomorrow or the next day. And so you'll just need to check your email. And within that email, there will be a link to a survey. It's a Survey Monkey. You need to complete it within a week. You can print your certificate from there. This is a tiered training, and so WICA does enter the roster, and we promise to do that within 4 weeks. There's my email address, which you all already have because you've received multiple emails from me. Please feel free to email me at any time if you can't access something or a link doesn't work or anything at all. So I'm going to say that we're finished for now. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating. Thank you, Rebecca, for all the information.
Thank you.
And so we will now stay on the line. I've got a few more questions to ask, but thank you. All right. One question. So do you need to have, I think you mean an associate's degree. Do you need to be at least level 12 on the registry if you want to be 5 stars? Is that true?
Yes. To be 5 stars, all of your staff have to have a minimum of an associate's degree in a group center.
And so someone asks, what's the risk to take a formal rating? There really isn't a risk, is there?
There's no risk at all. It's an intimidating process. We do understand that. It's very comprehensive, and you have to be prepared to deal with us, you know, maybe multiple times in the space of 4 weeks. And you know, you're probably stressed about that, but you have nothing to lose. If you are already rated at 3 stars and you in the past went through technical rating, you can still go through technical rating and get to 3 stars, and you can go through formal rating and get to 3 stars, but you very well may end up at 4 stars. Most programs do, if you have taken the time to prepare.
Can you clarify what the self-assessment is that was at the beginning?
Oh, the self-assessment is a requirement, and honestly, formal raters never see these, so I will not be the best person to answer this question for you, but it is a requirement for you to even complete your 3-star rating, your technical rating. It's a document where you take some time to evaluate what your program is doing and where you would like to see some improvements made. You're assessing the quality of your program as it currently is. And there are different forms that you can use for that. Your technical consultant will be the best person to help you, much better than I would be, to help you find the right form or style of self-assessment to complete.
And someone says, I thought only lead staff need to be 12 or higher for 5-star.
Oh, did I not say that? I thought that I did, because I guess in my head that goes without saying. Yes, it's lead teachers, and directors have to have their own education requirements met.
Okay. Can you still use the PAS, the Program Administration Scale, instead of Model Work Standards, or is Model Work Standards the only assessment that can be used?
Model Work Standards isn't an assessment. Model Work Standards is actually a completely separate point in the evaluation criteria. And Model Work Standards is a little red booklet. that evaluates the quality of the workplace environment for your staff. The PAS it can be used for self-assessment, yes, and it evaluates your policies and business practices, but it also speaks more to the services that you provide to families. Then model work standards is really about how is my place for being a place to come to work for my employees, my adult employees. It might address the learning environment for the children, but it's really more about how is it for your staff to show up to work there, where the PAS can be used to assess more comprehensively your program. But the model work standards is not a self-assessment, where the PAS can be, yes.
I think that's it. So if somebody has a question that I missed and that we didn't answer or didn't answer correctly or enough for you, please just go ahead and type one in. Otherwise, it looks like everything's been answered, but I'm going to wait just a few seconds to see.
Okay.
Oh, so Tanya's clarifying this. So is it required that we have an assessment in a child's portfolio?
Oh, no, the individual child assessments do not have to be housed in the portfolios, but they are required to earn the point for intentional planning. They are not required for the portfolio point. Individual child goals are, and goals usually come from an assessment, so they're very linked, but it is not a requirement to earn the portfolio point that the individual child assessments be there.
All right. You're welcome to everyone who said thank you. All right. Well, thank you again for your participation, and thank you, Rebecca. And we hope to see you on some of the other webinars that we're doing in the next couple weeks.
Thank you very much.